just going to sharpen both the 2B pencils again, and now we're going to be getting quite excitingly close to the end. And so what we're going to have now is the detail appearing on Captain Jack Sparrow's face. And we're going to start with his eyes. Now, here we have the dark over his eyes. And just like around the rest, because it's so sunk back, so you can see there that his face is now thinner in comparison to all the other areas. And so what we have now is to detail up and darken his eyes and his nose and his moustache and the beard at the bottom, and it'll just really lift a lot. So I'm doing a nice dark edge, got a little angle going up over the pupil, and then it curves down on the outside. We've got a darker edge at the, like the outside of his black eyeliner, and then a dark line where it kind of folds, and then where the nose curves up into the eye socket, a little bit darker. But now I'm just filling in, not pressing on as hard, but putting dark in because it's a little bit lighter, that bit over the top. Now, using the point of the pencil, just putting the edge of his tear duct in, the underneath part to the edge. Then we can really darken the outer part of his iris. It's quite a nice dark line. Be careful not to destroy that kind of crescent of brown at the bottom. And dark next to the highlight, don't go over the highlight. Coming down, and you're leaving that nice little crescent of light at the bottom. And there already you can see his left eye starting to really leap off the page. Dark line at the top of the lower eyelid, a little bit of shadow, and right in the corner so as it's not a solid point. Then here we have dark line underneath the upper part of his lower eyelid. You got that kind of nice highlight there as well, so we don't want to obscure that. And then following this curved banana shape, it's not as black as above, but it's still dark, and we've got that shadow curving up to the corner, a bit lighter. Again, we've got this highlight like we have at the very top as it curves underneath. So there we have the left eye done quite well. Now again, we bring the full curve all the way down and around. Just bring that shadow out a little bit, soften it right on the edge. Just nice little furry kind of soft edge line. Little bit of shadow at the top of the eye. White eyeball. Same on both sides. And I'm just going to come in with the putty rubber dabbing underneath the pupil at the bottom, the iris, where it's white. I've just dabbed the highlight right in the centre of the pupil. Then we've got that nice little bit of highlight on the lower eyelid, in the tear duct, underneath under the tear duct, and then just bring out that highlight on his kind of lower crease underneath his eye. Little dab on the edge there. Again, that's the eye, and you can see straight away in comparison to the right eye, that's now really striking. Now again, sharpening the pencil, so I've got really sharp point, just blowing the dust off. Again, nice and sharp point, so we can follow the lines over that we drew in at first. Come down to the tear duct, and that goes over flat. Just make that a little bit thicker, then that diagonal goes right the way out, right in the tear duct, the underneath line, and then that just curves a little bit. Again, using a nice sharp point. Now bring the curve down underneath. But again, the same thing, so we can darken up. And this is all still a 2B pencil. Looks like this is just going to be a 2B pencil on this one, which is quite surprising, but enjoyable at the same time. Just to show you that you can do quite a good piece of work with a very limited set of tools. Left the crescent there underneath and the highlight. So now we want that dark line over the top. That comes over and then just curves into the corner socket. And then we've got a dark line right underneath the kind of right eye bag. We've got that curve, so we can now fill in the darker tone coming down into the corner, but you can see they've got a nice light patch here, so we want to just extend that shadow over to the actual corner socket that comes down there, and we can just darken that down a little bit, and darken, really darken, but not impress on as hard as the outer lines, the shadow in the upper eyelid. And again, we can just bring that curve down. And then we've got just some indication of his eyelashes, but it's so dark the makeup just covers up his eyelashes completely. Again, I'm leaving the highlight here like we've got on this side, just a little bit lighter. Just gently bring the dark round underneath, leaving the highlight. Now again, just like we did on this side, lightly shade the upper part of the white eyeball, and again the curve coming down, leaving the whites at the bottom. Now there is, right at this very bottom, a strong highlight, but we haven't left enough space there, but that's okay. I'm going to use the putty rubber, just clean up the pupil highlight. See if we can just, there we go, I've just pulled that out a little bit, do a little bit more. Oh, that's going to work. Here we go. So I'm pulling out the highlight between the lower iris and the lower lid. Now using a sharp point, letting that little dot show, and there is that lower highlight. So now you can really see Jack's eyes staring out at you, and we need to darken the shadow underneath his bandana. Just to make that a bit crisper. Curve the shadow following the nose, so you can imagine that the line of the bandana is causing a slightly darker, but it's curved around the shape of the upper part of the brow of his nose. And we've got that slightly lighter shadow there. And we come down the side of the nose into the corner of the eye socket, and we come over, and you can see we've got a darker part coming right past that braid. Just encourage a little bit more dark there. Again, it's darker at the top, and then it becomes light as it comes further down out from underneath the hair. Now we build the shade up to the right of the upper eye socket, going up to his bandana. And then there's this little line that comes down here. It looks like it's like kind of like this cross, but we've got that in. Bring the shadow down, comes above, diagonally above the centre of his eye, and then it goes flat across. And just add a little bit more tone. Now that's Captain Jack staring back at us. Again, this corner, just building the diagonal up a little bit darker underneath the bandana. And then we've got an extra shape, but it's just shadow around the black eyeliner. And we come right up into this corner, just a little bit darker. That's looking great. Again, same thing under here, we've got this slightly darker shadow. And we can darken the eye. We need to just darken down the side. But before we bring all of this skin together, like I say, I'm just darkening that down a little bit. So we've got this shape and form, softening the shadow edge right on the side, curving the dark underneath the bandana. That's looking brilliant. Now we're going to come to the nose. We've got the curve coming underneath the nostril. Then you got the, you can see it's just a C shape. I'm using the tip of the pencil, but very soft. I'm not pressing on, getting a sharp edge. And you see that comes up, and then we've got this little kind of triangle of shadow as the crease comes back over and comes into this like corner part between the flared part of his nostril and the point of his nose. And then you've got that shadow that goes up. You've got a, you can see a kind of box, a parallel set of lines here. That's the shadow coming down his nose. Now the actual nostril, going to increase the dark under the right nostril, and it comes down to the top of his moustache, and then the dark goes up. Now that's fairly dark already. The side again, just nice and gentle. You can see here we've just got a little curved shape of shadow. And you can see that line is now much darker underneath. But we need to increase the shadow, the darker lines on his moustache. So directly underneath his nose. And then you've got light coming this side. So this area is pretty good. But we've got that dark shadow underneath going up to the centre. Again, you can be a little bit scratchy because it's whiskery hair. Dark again is this curve that comes under. You've got the shadow that kind of makes the point coming round. I can darken that up a little bit. Now I'm just indicating some little whiskers. And they come down. That's the left hand side done. We can increase the dark in between his upper and lower lip. Shadow caused by his moustache coming down. You've got this V that leaves this kind of little triangle of light. A little bit of shadow at the top like we did with the eyeballs. And then soften it underneath the lower lip to the top where it comes out, and we've got, so you've got straight lines coming down on your lip. It's the kind of cracks in your lips, so we can bring them down, little triangle of shade, and we've got this lovely highlight right in the center. Here we've got a little kind of U shadow, darker right underneath the moustache. Follow the shape round again on this side. We can just bring the shadow down a little bit. And that comes out. Now we've got nice dark whiskers at the bottom on the right hand side. So I'm just drawing nice dark scratchy lines using the point of the pencil, twisting it to keep it sharp. But in the way that the whiskers would grow. So again, come right up underneath the nostril, the right nostril. We've got some sharper dark lines. And that comes down a little bit lighter on the top. But then we've got the shadow caused by the moustache coming down and underneath, and that gives it that shadow that's cast like here, gives it its three-dimensionality, and you have to do that. So again, the shadow here caused by the nose, just build that up a little bit. But there, now you can really see Jack's face is all coming together quite well. It's really starting to look good. So now we've got this little goatee bit underneath. So we can see here we've got a horizontal line that we haven't put in. Little bit of shadow. And then we've got the whiskers coming down, just looking, just drawing a few. If you want to do them exact, then you've got to spend a lot of time, but I'm just giving an approximation and an idea. So that's the lip, and down here you can see we've got more shadow, but we're going to build all this up on the flash when we've finished this section. Now we've got the beard at the bottom, so we've got lots of, so I'm just going to be twisting the pencil, whiskers growing out of his chin into the top of his beard that comes off the very edge of his chin. So just indicate like growth whiskers going into the mass of the black beard that's then plaited to these two little points down here. And then we can come up, really darken, and all the way down. So we've got a dark line down the edge, a little bit lighter here, but so just leaving a little bit, and then it's all dark. From those lines. But again, even though I'm scratching and really pressing in, I'm doing the lines in the direction that the beard would grow. You know, you could do it sideways like I did the belt, but get used to doing your lines in the direction that things do grow or are brushed, and it just helps. And it becomes second nature. And it was just one of those things where when I was learning as a teenager to draw and just experimenting and learning, you don't think about them, you just make marks and have a go. But when you really stop and think about it, it's like, okay, what mark can I make with this pencil that will replicate and make people believe that they are seeing a beard, hair, a moustache, eyes? How can I get the tones? So again, I've filled in all of that, a bit softer up the side. You've got this little darker patch with a lighter patch inside it. So now I'm using the soft part, not pressing on as hard, but getting the dark and kind of flattening it down, the colour down, or the colour, the tone down. Now we're into the plait. We're coming down and we've got highlight on those two parts. So you've got the round one. It's got a nice highlight in the centre and the bottom one of those two. So just cleaning the page up a bit. Ready for the drawing to go on. Now, we've got these shapes. I'm just following the shapes really quickly of the plaits that we drew. Pressing dark on the outside. So you've got that nice dark black tone, and then we can just fill in and leave the highlights showing, just nice and carefully. So the shadow's a little bit darker down the outside. We can just fill some of the tone in. Again, do the same on this side, follow the shapes, those kind of flame shapes that we drew. And that is really good. Now we've got the darker side on the outside there going up, and you can see this kind of zigzag of light, and so I'm following down the zigzag, darkening up the outside, and then that just leaves that lighter part in the centre that kind of zigzag down a little bit. Dark down to the little metal bits. And we've got dark line in between the green bead and the grey ones at the top. Follow the curve round for the green one. Curve in the centre, a little bit of shadow on the outside. Now we've got this red one underneath. Again, I'm just twisting the pencil. In fact, I'm going to swap it over. I'm just showing the curve. That needs sharpening. Yep. Sharpen the pencils. That's better. Now, got the red one, just build the tone with a little bit of highlight up. Now this one, we've got top half has got that highlight on. So nice sharp point, dark line, dark on the outside, a little bit of shade underneath, A little bit of shade on the top, but leaving that bright highlight on. Now again, got a little bit of hair coming out of the bottom. And that comes down, and then this one kicks out underneath the bottom of there. That is absolutely fantastic. So that's really good, and now what we've got to do is build up the tones around his face and his skin. And we can do a lot more, we can do a lot more detail, but you can see how it all works. This is all really loose, but because you focus on the face, that's where the detail is, and that's how you build up a drawing. So we're going to do the shade around the face and build up the tones to make it a lot more three-dimensional. You could leave it at that, but we're going to do one more section, and then it'll really pull it all together. Anyway, I hope you're having fun, because this is absolutely fantastic. Now we are coming in finally. I think this is the final section. We shall wait and see. I mean, you can obviously just keep working as much as you want, but we're going to build up the shadow now around the face to actually develop the three-dimensionality of Captain Jack Sparrow. So we want to build up the tone here. So here we've got the circular shape of his cheek coming down. You can see just like an egg shape. And you've got that little cast of shadow that comes down, following his cheek line. So I'm filling the tone in, and it comes up, and you can see how you've got this tonal shape leading up into this corner, but that's lighter, and you've got this darker part here. Now again, you can really accentuate as much as you want. I'm using the flat side of the pencil to just build up the tone. And then you come down, and underneath this X we've got nice dark coming out from the where his hair joins the side of his face, but that comes down and then comes out. Again, you've got that curve underneath. I'm just building up, and you be careful, just add a little bit at a time. You know, build it up slowly. You can press on a little bit, but you're using the flat, so you're building and adding tone. It's easier to add than it is to take away, but this is the beauty of drawing. So here now we've got, you can see you've got the shape, the C shape here next to the edge of his moustache, again going up to his cheek. And then we want a little bit more tone there going through the X, marks the spot. But you can see there's a light tone down here, and the cheek is darker just inside, and then the same thing comes down to his jawline, and you can see you can just leave that little bit of highlighted tone, little bit lighter than the cheek, and already you can see that's now giving him much more shape and form down the right hand side of his face. Now, the side of his jaw, again I'm doing this really quickly, coming down to his chin underneath. You see here we've got this plane of light, so we're leaving that to show. So you've got this shape cast around underneath his lower lip, but there's a shadow there and it's lighter at the top, so we can follow the shape of the edge of his jaw. Again, just think of an egg shape. You can see I'm doing that oval, and that's where it's just building the shadow up a little bit. And now underneath the goatee there's a little bit of shadow cast by the hair. Again, I'm just indicating gently, cast shadow by the actual whiskers in the same tone. It leaves a kind of dappled effect. Now come over on this side, we can build the tone up underneath the moustache, coming down the lip, underneath the lip. Then we've got on this side, so just like we've got the jawline here, we've got the jawline a little bit darker. You can see it comes up next to the highlight on the second one. So we can just build the tone up and it comes down. Again, using your reference, you can see how it comes over and you've got this Y shape. So that's the top of the shade. And again, you're using the soft of the pencil, so you're not getting a sharp, scratchy line. You know, if I drew there, you can see sharp points, but you're using the side of the tip, and it's allowing you to build the tone up slowly. Now again, here we've got another ellipse. You can just fill that in lightly with some tone. And here you've got a nice patch of highlight that comes down. But we've got the line that comes down from his nose and then it kicks over. And then this comes down underneath the left hand side of his moustache. Just thicken the shadow a little bit as you got the curve on the crease. Darker. You've got a little patch of dark going up underneath the left hand part of his moustache. Then bring that shadow down. Increase the shadow at the bottom of the chin coming out of the goatee. Just nice and soft. Leaving this patch of light here. Now again, we've not done any highlights on his face, on his skin, using the putty rubber yet, but we'll get there. So again, building the tone up on the side of the face. Now here we've got this crease that comes up and then kicks out right to the side. You've got this little lighter bit. You've got two kind of lines right down, giving definition. You've got this lighter part here showing up. So you just leave that, don't fill it in with tone. And that comes down. And again, we now come up and we've got another egg shape here. But I'm going to use just sideways motion. Nice and light, backwards and forwards. And again, hold your pencil at the end like this and just sketch like this. Let it flow, let it bounce, and experiment making just tonal marks. And you'll learn different techniques and skills on how to make different tones and different marks that will develop your drawing skills. And you can then utilise them if you're drawing live or anything. Just doing stuff in your sketchbook, you'll just hold your pencil in a different way. So again, here we can see we've got this curve coming down of light that comes across to this rectangle of light here underneath. So we want to just carefully indicate where I want to bring the tone over to. Now already you can see that his face is incredibly now three-dimensional, whereas underneath his neck it's actually quite light and we need to darken that down. But we'll get to that in a bit, and that you could literally finish and go, oh yeah, I'm done, but then, oh, where's the shadow here? Here it should be dark, and that'll make his face lift off even more. But I want to just get these tonal values in on the face. So you've got this line that comes across the bridge of his nose and then comes down and comes around underneath. Again, just darken it up little by little, and then you've got this diagonal light coming down, going onto his nose here. So you've got this nice rectangle shape coming down of tone, but just a little bit carefully do the D shape here on the side of his nostril. Build the tone up a little bit more. And then we come down from the eye, just add a little bit of tone, a little bit of cross hatching. That goes all the way up and a little bit next to it. And it just brings out. Now if you look, it's actually not white paper here. You've got a nice highlight here and a stronger highlight around. So I'm now very, very gently. Again, we keyed in the paper, so it's not plain paper. Very gently filling that tone in. Now we come on this side of his nose and it's much darker. But most of the work's done, so you can just cover the whole lot coming down. Just make it that little bit darker. Then go to that highlight on the bridge of his nose, that's the strongest part. And you come down to the nostril and then underneath. So we've got a darker shadow following the curve, but I'm leaving a reflected highlight right next to the dark of the nostril. And then as it comes out on this side again, we want it a little bit darker, but not as dark as this side because it's on the light side of his face. Now shadow, you can see the line, I've just made it quite strong so you can see diagonal. The light's coming this way, so we've got the shadow coming off his nose. Again, here we can see the diagonal line caused by the shape of his nose bringing the shadow down, but it's not as strong. You can see there's a bit of an S shape following the contour of his face and his cheek. But we need to build the shadow right up underneath, going underneath the nostril. There you go. Every bit that you add is adding more reality to your drawing. So here we've got the shadow line coming down on the corner of his cheek. Next to his moustache. Just building up the tone a little bit more. Again, you just add little by little and it builds up. Now, this cross on his cheek, I can actually make that a bit wider. I'm using the tip of the pencil because it's gouged into his face. And that now makes that really stand out. And again, you can see curve lines of his skin going over. So I'm just drawing curve lines and that indicates the direction of the creases and lines in his face. Now again, one coming over, darker line right in the corner. We can increase the shadow that comes down in the corner of his eye socket and comes underneath his tear duct. Build shadow up into the corner. Again, it's only little details, but you can just build up slowly and carefully. Again, now next to the bottom of his chin. That's absolutely fantastic. So now you can use the blending stump. I'm just going to clean the end of it because it says quite dark. You know, you can use a cotton bud or anything, but I'm now going to use the blending stump. Just like, in fact, I'll just bring the paper in so I don't smudge anything. Like you use the pencil. So I can see, you know, that it will soften up some of the lines that we've made. I'm not pressing on too hard, but it's giving me more definition. You can see there's a light bit at the top of his nose underneath. But I'm just pushing that pencil tone around a little bit. And it gives me, if you squint your eyes, you can kind of see the shapes of the shadows. Coming down underneath the eye socket. That's absolutely fantastic. Again, I've gone a little bit too low there, so I'm just gently dabbing. And again, that's bringing a little bit of life back. Then this dark down the side of his cheek leaves that highlight, just pushes it round. And on this side, dark going up. Again, I'm just building the tone up as I would with a pencil. That's really, really lovely. So now underneath the chin, and we'll come back and use that in a second. Now, flat of the pencil, we've got a lot of shadow underneath here. So I'm resting my hand on top of my right hand, so I'm pivoting from my elbow, not my wrist. So now we can see we've got this nice dark shadow following all the way down this braided plait. Comes down under the string and it's nice and soft and blurred. So again, this is why we're using the soft edge of the pencil. And again, this plait right on this side, we can bring the tone down underneath the pendant, and it just gives it a little bit more three-dimensionality, makes that stand out a little bit. So again, the edge of that is a dark line, makes it crisp, but with the shadow next to it, that now makes that stand out that little bit more. Again, the shadow on his chest coming over. Now from these pigtails coming off his chin, this one you've got the gap from the front of his chin, so we've got light behind, so you want to leave that light going up, but then it's quite dark underneath his chin. Now this is really going to bring his face forwards. And then again, the second one, same thing, we've got light when we go up into the shadow. Build the dark tone up. But again, we've got reflected lights here. So we want the dark coming off his chin underneath. Again, you've got this oval shape of light. And then right up in the corner, we bring the dark down, just carefully building it up, not going too dark too quick, so you can gradate the tone coming down. So there you can see we've got that shape creating his neck, and already you can see now those shadow lines are giving more depth to the face and more form and shape. So I hope you're enjoying this. This is absolutely fantastic. Again, we've got a shadow coming down off this one, just showing up nice shapes. Just adding some little tones down there. So that curve there, that dark. Then we've got tone building up on the collar. I'm using the tip of this now, but not pressing on and getting a sharp line, so that I'm getting the tone that I want increased and built up. Now we need to build a little bit more tone coming over from underneath the chin. Nice and careful. Now back in with the blending stump. Again, this is personal preference. I just like using these. And you can use a brush. Now again, this really softens out that tone and it makes that shadow look fantastic from underneath. And again, same thing there, underneath the braid. That edge of the material and that plait, you've now got that soft shadow on his chest and that little bit of highlight showing up there. Again, softening up, darker where it's next to the plait, goes a little bit lighter and then darker underneath. So I'm really pressing down, and because it's so dark on the actual plaits, it doesn't matter because you're just pulling some extra tone off. And this is all done with a 2B pencil. This is fantastic. Ordinarily I'd use a 4B as well, but the fact that we've actually pulled this off with just a 2B pencil is amazing. So again, underneath the right of his chin, softening that shadow, darkening it, and then darkening right up the corner, pressing and bringing the tone down. There you can see we've still got that reflected highlight inside. Soften that shadow. Again, back up on his chin. Now again, this is now just little tweaks for me. But that is absolutely fantastic. Now, I'm going to come in with the putty rubber. In fact, I can see straight away, where's my blending stump? Just need soften the top of that nose a little bit. That was too sharp, but that's fantastic. Anyway, this is where now, hopefully, he says, it all kind of comes together. So I'm carefully dabbing where that strong highlight is on his nose. And then the same, that little V in between his lips, on the bottom lip. Then we've got the points in between, and then on the edge of his chin, then on his cheek, coming around. You can hear me dabbing and it just pulls off the tone the little bit, and this then gives you can see that's really helping his face to lift off. Now I'm dabbing on his cheek, it just kind of dappled a little bit. Then edge of his nostril, above the actual nostril. Just adding some little highlights inside on that side of his nose because that's the lighter part. Then on this cheek, same thing, just dappling. And going over to where the X is, we've just got some little lines underneath the eyelid. Same on this side, little reflected highlight. And that's actually really, really lovely. Again, down on his chest. Just dappling, not pulling off too much. Then on the medallion, just touching a few bits and just pulling up the highlights. The creases down the side of his face. But the actual texture of these putty rubbers allows you to do this. And that's absolutely fantastic. Now again, the last little bit, we're going to do a little bit more detail, I think. Now, these are literally last details. And all I'm going to do, like I say, you can do so much. You can keep going. I mean, obviously, if you wanted to do a hyper-real picture of Jack Sparrow, it would take you a week, if not more. Realistically, you're talking a lot of hours. You know, 40 to 80, if not more hours. But what I'm doing now is I'm just looking and adding details. So you can see here that it's all light. And even though you wouldn't notice, I'm just adding just some directional lines following the shapes of the hair, just to build and add in some of that tone. Again, I'm just doing this nice and quick because that was a little bit light and it needed to be darkened down. So even here, coming off the edge of the bone, we've got this darker patch on the edge. So we can just add some lines, and this is just me finishing up a few minutes of little scribbly drawings. You know, we could have left it as it was and that would have been absolutely fine, but I'd rather just spend a little bit of time. So here you can see you've got the shadow curve coming underneath and it's nice and dark there. So I'm just crisping these little bits up, and it really makes a difference. So here we've got a bit of dark inside the hair. And just as when we put the shadow in on the face, it really started to lift up. When we put the dark in all around, that really lifted, well, it sent the face back at first, but when we put the dark in on the face, that then started to, again, lift it up. So now I've just put all of that in. So now, because we haven't got any strong, sharp highlights, I'm just using the blending stump, and that gets rid of any of the white tone, so it allows the sharper highlights to stand out. So here on his earring, just pull that up a little bit, and on this feather, so even on the feather as well, using the very sharp tip of the pencil, I'm just indicating the lines of the feather as it comes away from the central spine, darkening that edge down. Now this, I'm just looking and following what I need to do. Again, darkening, so all of this needs to just come down a little bit on the tone, softening the edge. Again, this is where the blending stump is brilliant. That little rectangle. And again, this is all done with the 2B pencil. Which I am genuinely surprised at. I thought I'd have been using the 4B, and you could have done, but it's just good to experiment sometimes and just try doing something with one pencil. There is one I did of a zombie, using a zombie pencil. I didn't even know what grade it was. It was just a simple drawing to have a go. So again, everything down here is a bit darker, and again the edge of that hair, so I'm building the tone down, softening the edges as it goes into the shadowy area. Again, just drawing nice and quickly. And this is what makes drawing real fun, because you can decide when you've finished. If you've done enough, if you've finished, is it time to stop? Again, this hair at the top, to make that highlight stand out, I'm now just making sure there's no strong highlights behind. And to make the bone stand out, I've just softened all of those tones up there. But it's hair, and hair does have some highlights in, so just going back in. And that's the thing, I've not used the Tombow eraser, I've just used this one. That's a very thin eraser, but I've not used it on this one at all. Again, limited materials makes you a little bit more creative sometimes. So again, you can see how now, just by me indicating some highlights in the hair, it's giving you the form and the shape. Just by dabbing, just builds up a little bit of more tonal value. Again, on his shoulder, just highlights on the fabric as it curves across, and then as his hair cascades down onto his shoulder. And I'm just dabbing in the direction that the hair goes and moves. So again, now pushing the tone around right up on the top. Just need really increase some of the dark, and that'll make the bandana stand out a bit better. And this is all you do. You literally look around your drawing and you decide where you're going to work next and what you want to develop and which areas need a little bit more work. And you can do this for hours and hours and hours and days and days and days, but eventually you have to just say, yep, that's it, done. So at the back I've just indicated some of those highlights. Bit of highlight on the top and the side. So here, coming down into the left side of his head, we've got some darker lines in, really dark underneath. Again, no solid highlights till it comes out to the side, so just use the blending stump and then build up some of those textures. Again, the arm, just the highlight, got some shadow, just pushing the tonal texture around. So now I'm squinting, seeing where there's real dark on this side. Inside these dreadlocks going up, just underneath there, a little bit, just coming down. And we want the darks to really push the drawing, the rest of the drawing forwards. So I'm following the shapes of these dreadlocks down, and again you can see there's a real nice dark shadow next to this dreadlock coming down, and again on the other side, and then by that little rope braid. I'm really pressing on hard, just using the weight of my body. I'm not resting my hand on the page, just doing little circles now. And you can see you've got that kind of fuzzy effect. But now we've got it really, that's a bit straight, so I'm just fuzzying that up. It needs to darken down. A real shadow. Coming down. And that's literally what you do. You just build your tone up. Again, I'm just filling in some of these areas, but with nice thick cross hatching. And you think about the tonal shapes in an abstract way to frame everything else that you've done. So that now you can see that side matches this side in tonal value, and it just gives you balance in your picture. But again, I'm going to do, like I've done the full portrait of this, I'm going to do some different, I'm going to do some quicker ones that may only take 30 minutes to an hour, very quick. And but I might even do some like this, but just do details on the eyes instead, just so as you can see what you can do with the drawing and just be a little bit more creative. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this, because I've had a blast. I know it's been a long time. Again, down here next to this rope. So again, I'm now just adding some tonal value on the string around that dreadlock. And then here we've got the braid picked up on the dreadlock, and then the braid on his waistcoat, little highlights. Bit more shadow. This is absolutely fantastic. Anyway, that is our captain, Jack Sparrow. I don't think that needs any more. I'm going to leave that. I mean, you can fiddle and faff for a long time, but I've had an absolute blast. Please do like and subscribe. Become a patron and you get these early and advert free, which is fantastic. It's patreon.com/theartofbilly. But do share with your friends and enjoy, and share the time lapses as well. Anyway, I will see you all in the next video lesson. I know it's been a while, but thanks again. Take care. Ta-da.